Hello and welcome to Off the Brawl on Off the Ball, the show which brings you all the headline news and views from around the world of combat sports. I'm joined in studio as ever by Simon On Fire Maguire. Simon, what's the crack?
Ronan, how are you?
And Phil the Power Egan. How are things? Happy with those nicknames?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to be associated with Phil Taylor.
Have you given it any consideration, your nickname, no?
If I was a clinical boxer, like the finisher would be good.
Simon?
On Fire is good, yeah. White Fire.
I'll give you till the end of the show. If you can come up with a better one, let me know, right? Okay, so we're going to reflect on AJ's pulsating win over Povetkin at the weekend. We're also going to look ahead to some of the other fights that are coming up towards the end of the year. But lads, first off, what did you make of events at Wembley on Saturday?
Over to you, On Fire.
I didn't think AJ looked himself. We were talking about this when I was watching with a few of the lads, and it turned out afterwards he had the flu leading into the fight. He looked a bit subdued, and I think, he got worried pretty early on when Povetkin caught him and his nose was bloodied. I thought this wasn't going to be the walk in the park that I'd hoped. That said, he weathered the storm, he came back strong and he got the job done, and I think everyone was delighted just because they don't want to see Povetkin with the titles.
Phil, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I know he hurt him at the end of the first round. Povetkin hurt Joshua, but watching the fight, I never actually thought that Joshua was going to lose the fight. It was just a case of we were interested to see what Povetkin would bring to the table, and he brought a lot of what people expected. He posed problems for him, but age probably caught up with him towards the end, and Joshua was very clever with the way he jabbed him to the body and it slowed him down. And one thing we can say about AJ, his finishing is unbelievable. That was so clinical.
Yeah, and Mike Costello actually made the point that all things considered, as Simon touched on, the pre-fight troubles, and Povetkin posed a pretty legitimate challenge. It was, Mike Costello reckons, it's his best performance of his career. Would you go along with that?
Well, AJ himself said no. He still had, obviously, the Klitschko fight was ahead, but probably just given the roller coaster in that fight, that you can see why Joshua is going to have Klitschko as his best one yet. But I suppose he came through adversity. Obviously, if I had the flu, the last thing I'd want to do is fight.
Yeah.
He did it. He got his nose busted in the first round, and the pressure, each fight that goes by now, there's just more and more pressure on him, because 80,000 turn up expecting to see him win, to knock out his opponents. There was a little bit of criticism after he couldn't knock out Parker, and obviously knowing what's at the end of the line, the Wilder fight, that's what everyone wants. They want Joshua and Wilder. But if you lose to Povetkin, it goes on hold. It mightn't happen. So there's unbelievable pressure. And in fairness to him, he walks into the ring, he just looks so relaxed. He's, tapping gloves with people on the way in. He just looks so relaxed. He gets the job done. And I said there was moments where you thought, okay, he's got a few problems here, but he doesn't panic.
Yeah. And we'll get into more of Joshua, the specifics around him and all that, with Barry Jones, former Super-Featherweight champion of the world, will join us shortly. But it's probably worth touching on Povetkin himself, because, he's only ever lost to Klitschko before this, and people were sort of writing him off at 39 years old. Didn't think he'd bring much to the party. But, he did overreach at times, but he looked really dangerous. And I was saying the other day that he probably would have beaten every other heavyweight in the world on Saturday night.
I mean, he was just out of reach on a number of times with that left hook.
Yeah,
and I don't think it was AJ moving his head back. I just think he was just had that reach on him, and it could have been lights out. Just in relation to the stoppage, I don't think he should have been let continue. He got knocked down, he got up, he stumbled out of the ring, through the ropes again, got back up, and the ref was kind of 9.5.
Yeah,
are we good to go? And your man was like, yeah, go on, yeah. But I think that should have been stopped there and then. I don't think he deserved the extra punishment. Yeah,
and his cornerman before the actual stoppage did leap up onto the ringside to call it off.
So that goes back to what we talked about with Andy a few weeks ago with certain referees and certain fighters. Povetkin's never been stopped before, so they're thinking, let's give him the chance, maybe he can shake it off, but it didn't last much longer.
And for most of Joshua's career, in the early part at least, it was all bluster and, you know, he was just bowling people over, but he showed some real good tactical acumen. We can actually hear Paulie Malignaggi's thoughts. He was on the call for Sky Sports, and here's how he broke things down.
It's hard to be a thinker under duress. It's hard to be a thinker under stress. And Joshua's a thinker. You saw the way he set up that knockout? People just see the right hand and it was a knockout. That wasn't just he was touching the stomach, for various rounds he was touching the stomach, touching the stomach, touching the stomach. No, I wasn't touching you. Touching the stomach, touching the stomach. Then what happened in round 7? Touching the stomach. Povetkin gets used to just one touch. Povetkin just gets used to now all of a sudden, Povetkin's getting his stomach touch and he's bending. Oh, he gets used to just one touch. You know what happens in the 7th round? Boom! You know what I'm saying? He set that up from rounds previous. That wasn't just something that happened in round 7. That was being set up the entire time. That means Joshua was thinking as he's going through those stressful rounds, and where some of them he's actually losing. So, brilliant finish, but he's also a thinker in there. He's got character.
No, I thought Paulie kind of hit the nail on the head there. And Andy Lee actually tweeted. Andy Lee's on holidays. He couldn't join us today. He's on a 3-week sabbatical, but he was just making the point that Joshua, rather than just going for the knockout from the first go, he was targeting Povetkin to the body, opening up those shots to the head. And it was just classic boxing, which you wouldn't necessarily associate with the heavyweight division, that sort of nuance. But I was very impressed with Joshua playing the long game.
I like the way Paulie Malignaggi referenced that, you know, he's thinking through these rounds. He might be losing some of the rounds, but he wasn't actually losing them because the judges were giving all the rounds to AJ. Well, one judge in particular had it 5-1 after 6 rounds, which, again, goes back to what we've talked about time and time again, how subjective it is. But I'm starting to think, should judges just wear headphones to
noise cancelling headphones,
just cancel out the crowd? Because
think of the sponsorship opportunities there. Beats by Dre sponsoring.
There you go.
Judges.
That's it. Maybe that's the way to do it. But yeah, he certainly said he didn't panic and he thought his way out of trouble, and that's very encouraging because it's still only 22 fights.
Yeah.
And okay, I know people say he can't say he's still learning, but he is. And he's still got more to learn, and that's the beauty of the way the heavyweight division is at the moment. We talk about the trinity of Wilder, Fury and Joshua. They all have vulnerabilities, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah, for me, he's undoubtedly the king of the division. With 22 fights in, and you look back through the course of history, like Mike Tyson, Klitschko were nowhere near title contention at that point, and Joshua's just had his 6th defence, 7th world title fight. So you look at the resume. I put out a tweet yesterday that his last 7 opponents have a combined 40 world title fights. Wilder's last 7 opponents have 4 world title fights. So that you're talking about levels here. That doesn't necessarily mean, you know, boxing maths doesn't work like that. And when Wilder and Joshua get into the ring, I do think it's a 50-50. But in terms of A sides and B sides in this fight, Joshua's the one with the proven record here. Without
a doubt, he's the draw in all of boxing now. But can he crack the pay-per-view market in America? That's the next step for him. I think they've saved an April date for Wembley.
April 13th, yeah.
For the next fight. We really hope it's the winner of Wilder Fury. I really hope it's Wilder, because then you can have the rematch in the States and he can launch his career stateside then. I just wonder, what do you lads think? Does he have
to? It's going to be Dylan White, lads.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be. Now, don't get me, the first Joshua and Dylan White fight was brilliant. White had him in trouble in the 2nd round, and again, Joshua came up with the answers. But unless, if Wilder was to lose to Fury, then obviously there's going to be a rematch there. So if you're Eddie Hearn, you're hoping Wilder wins and then they can set it up for the 13th of April. But then Wilder would think, why do I have to come over to Wembley?
No, I was making the point there that, we spoke at Andy on the debut edition that oftentimes back in the day you would have had to go to America, you know, that's where the money was at. But Joshua's the one with the drawing power here. Wilder's gate isn't huge, you know, he's never really established himself as a pay-per-view star yet. So, Joshua is the A-side in this fight, and I think by rights the first fight should be in Wembley, you know.
I agree, but how much more money would he make by cracking the pay-per-view market in America? I mean, the American market love a good knockout artist at heavyweight, and Joshua at the moment is that guy.
I'd say Joshua's all right for money, though. I'm feeling he's doing all right.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting point you make about Joshua put out that poll. Do you want to see me fight Wilder? Do you want to see me fight Fury or White? And White obviously was backing up the rear in that poll. But as you said, the first fight was a barn burner, and you know, as a third option, it's actually a pretty appetising fight.
Oh, no, definitely, I'd like to see it, but I think it is down the list of what people want to see.
Yeah, and we heard from Paulie Malignaggi there, courtesy of IFL TV. I'm delighted to say we're joined by another of the best boxing analysts on the scene, in former super featherweight champion of the world, Barry Jones. Barry, how are things?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. We'll get into Saturday night shortly, Barry, but you were one of the lucky few who was ringside for Golovkin versus Canelo 2. That must be right up there for you in terms of fights you've attended, is it?
It really was. It was. I was lucky enough to do the first fight as well, and boasting a little bit. And yeah, and again, to me, that second fight was tremendous atmosphere and the quality of the work. It's just an exciting fight to one thing, but when you see it's all done with, everything's so thoughtful, nothing's just wild on both boxers, and you see it's the highest of quality. It's one of those nights you look back on and think, I'm glad I was there.
Yeah, and you obviously scored it for Golovkin on the night. Have you had a chance to watch back, and are you happy with that score?
I don't watch back because I might have a different score, but you have to go with what you feel on the night. I think, and I didn't think it. I think my colleague John, who I worked with, John Ronan, thought it was a little bit of a robbery for Golovkin. Against Golovkin, I didn't think it was a robbery, but I did think. I think when you have a lot of very close rounds, then you'll have a very subjective scorecard. So, at least one thing, the judges pretty much agreed, except for one having a draw. The other two had it for Canelo, so at least it was a conclusive winner, and that's all we were asking for. I just thought it should have been the other way, but I don't think it was a scream up as such. I thought it was a close fight, and those close rounds I gave it to Golovkin because of his good work on his jab, where I think the judges went for I think the quality of work came from Canelo. Some of the combinations he threw were just beautiful to watch, really were mouth-opening stuff, and I think that caught the eyes of the judges, and he won the fight. I don't have a massive grievance with that, even though it disagreed with my card.
No, it was a fantastic fight, really could have gone either way. Are you confident we'll see a third fight, or do you think that's the end of the Golovkin-Canelo sort of rivalry?
I'd love to see a third fight, I think financially for both it's worth exploring, but I don't think Golovkin's going to get any better as his age. I think we've seen that, the fact that he wasn't able to push Canelo back, whether he wanted to or not, I don't know, but he doesn't go through the gears significantly brilliant in his younger days. Certainly as you get older, your feet slow down, first of all, before anything else. And I think he won't get better, but Canelo looks like he's still, amazingly, after such a long career, they're still only 28, 29, he's still on the ascendant. So I think it would be an easier fight for Canelo if it was another year down the line. And also, you tend to think that out of 6 scorecards in 2 fights, only one gave it to Golovkin. So you tend to think, will he want to go to Vegas again? And I think if a third fight's going to get made, he's going to have to go. So I'm not sure whether we'll see it.
Barry, you're obviously there, and you can see or you can hear the crowd and how influential they are on the judges. Do you think if anyone is going to beat Canelo, they're going to have to knock him out basically in Vegas, aren't they?
I think so. Again, I think with those close rounds, the crowd does have an influence, and I think in those close rounds as well, you are going to go with the guy who seems to be every time he misses or throws a punch, the crowd go crazy. And so I think it does have as you know yourself, it has an influence, most definitely. But you think you've got to get him out of Vegas. I think that's the key, and but he's the cash cow, and I just think you don't know why you're never going to move him from, which is now his home turf, isn't it, Las Vegas, for fights, and you would never take it. If I was his promoter, I would nail his feet I would nail his feet in the T-Mobile Arena in the centre of that ring and keep him there all year round, because he'd never move. He would never move from that place, because that's where he's successful. That's where he makes all the money for everybody. And so, yeah, I think he's going to be up against it. Anyone who fights is going to be up against it. They're going to really have to do a number on him. And right now, I can't see who that would be, because I think he's becoming a better fighter than what we've seen him a few years ago in the lighter weights, where he was still very, very technically good, but more of a bully type fighter. Now he's showing a little bit of intelligence in his work that we never thought he had.
Barry, Daniel Jacobs gave Golovkin his toughest fight pre-Canelo. Do you think that's the next challenge for Canelo and Cinco de Mayo?
You'd like to think so. I think obviously for a UK standpoint, it would be Billy Joe Saunders. But I think everyone starts an underdog with Canelo. I think Jacobs is a big middleweight. That's good, and he has good footwork, which we've seen. Canelo's not a lover of that. He likes you to stand in front of him or go back in straight lines. I think Jacobs has good variety in his work, and I thought Jacobs just nicked the fight against Golovkin, to be honest. But again, another close fight we couldn't argue with. I think that probably will be if Jacobs has got his own fight coming up now against for the vacant IBF title against Derevchenko, I think his name is. So if he comes through that, and I think he will, then I think that's the fight they'll be pushing for. And I think, I think that the big tests now are going to be, people like Jacobs, Billy Joe Saunders, to try and unify that division if he possibly can. but they all got to go with their, they all got to take their caps off and go with their, on their knees and beg for the chance to earn big money. So that's where he is, the way you earn the money. He's now taken over from Mayweather outside the heavyweight division as the king financially as the boxing world.
Do you think Billy Joe could entice Golovkin to the UK to set up an eliminator?
Yes, I do. I think that was always feasible. I think for the UK standpoint, everyone pretty much, I think promoters especially, wanted Golovkin to win because that's an easier fight to make than Canelo. I think, because of the terms of agreement and trying to get people outside the country. Golovkin's shown he's always happy to travel, and he doesn't want as much as obviously Canelo wants. I think after that huge payday, they'll have to really break the bank to get him over to the UK. Though, no, he is coming off a loss. It might be a little bit cheaper than it would have been if he would have got the win, of course. But I think it was always a chance that if Golovkin could win, then that would have been the easier guy to negotiate with. I'm pretty sure. So I think we can see him over. We've seen him pop over for a little tour against Kell Brooks. So I think he'd be more than enough to fight in, and he's fancy his chances against Billy Joe Saunders. Even though Billy's a fantastic, beautiful boxer, he's not a KO artist, and I think Golovkin could think he'd probably close him down and hurt him. So I think it'd be a great fight to watch, and I certainly think that's a fight that could very well happen, in the next year.
Yeah, and so the middleweight division is obviously alive and kicking, and aside from Canelo, boxing's biggest star, without a question, is Anthony Joshua. What did you make of his performance on Saturday night?
I thought he was fine. I thought he was behind on the scorecards, but when you carry great power like he does, it doesn't matter if you're behind, as long as you're sort of making the guy work hard or trying to put pressure on him. There's a worry with Joshua. He won the title very early in his reign, in his career, I should say. And he's boxed some decent fighters. I think 3 have been former world, or 4 have been either current or former world champions, which is not a bad thing to have on your resume in 22 fights. I just think I worry about some of the stuff that he does. I tweeted out in the fight after the first round, if Joshua jabs to the body, then throws the right hand over the top, then it might be an early night. And that's what started off the demise of Povetkin in round 7. And I worry just about, because he didn't have a massive amateur career, his ring intelligence is not quite there and yet, which is frightening because he's already the number 1 heavyweight in the world, and he's still got so much to learn. But the problem is he's at that level now where you can't make excuses for not having the right fights or the big amateur pedigree. Even though he did win the Olympic gold medal, he had a short amateur career, so he's lacked some of that experience. So you have to think on your feet and adapt. But saying that, that's being really critical because we are now of boxers everywhere. But I think he done a good job. I think when he's relaxed and gets a bit of rhythm in his work and gets on the balls of his feet and bounces in and out, I think he looks good. But the jab's the key for Joshua, and I don't think he's done enough on Saturday nights. But listen, Povetkin might be 39 years of age, but he's still fast, fast hands and jump into attacks and all that experience he brought into the ring. And Joshua still finished it, first man to finish him inside the distance, and that ticks another box to show that he can, like he did against Klitschko, that he can come from behind to win, or he can be in a hard fight and still prevail. And they're sort of things that you want to see from a champion, that he has those little gut checks and those little frustrating fights, but he still comes through on top. And I think the future's bright for Joshua. That's the main thing. I don't think this division right now, the heavyweight division, is quality-wise the best that we've had for a long. I think we've had some better times with better fighters, but it's more exciting because they're not quite at that level of the Lennox Lewis eras and the Holyfield eras. I think so. They make for exciting fights. So I think whoever Joshua fights next, and let's hope it's the winner of Wilder and Fury. That's a huge fight financially. I think they're both intriguing fights. One's a barnstormer with obviously with Wilder, and the Joshua fight and the Fury fight is quite interesting to how Joshua would cope with the movement of Fury. Yeah,
it's an interesting one because Joshua effectively for most of his career has been doing his apprenticeship on the biggest stage, be it the Olympics, and then straight into basically one of the marquee names in British boxing. But as you said there, the heavyweight crop at the moment, they all have flaws. Unlike Vladimir Klitschko, who was basically perfect, we're coming to realise that he was just a cut above everybody else. I think you're right that the heavyweight division is just exciting because everyone can be got at, basically.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think what we saw Saturday night, that Joshua didn't see that he could, if he punched to the chest early, that he'd be able to get the space of the right hand over the top. He was frustrated by he couldn't figure out the distance where Povetkin was jumping into attacks. So you can see that he can be hit, and we've seen in the past he can be hurt. So, and obviously Deontay Wilder as well. He's a guy who throws his punches from his ankles or from the back of his head. He's just a tremendous athlete. But actually, even though he's an Olympic bronze medalist himself, he's not really technically what you call a boxer. Boxer, he doesn't really have those fundamental boxing skills. He's just wild, athletic, and carries tremendous power. And Fury himself looks up some beautiful skills, but he's erratic, unorthodox. Gives you massive opportunities where he drops his hands to catch him. So everyone's vulnerable and brilliant in their own little. Within that vulnerability, there's brilliance in their work as well. As you see with Wilder, he misses and he squares his feet up, then he knocks out with the next punch. Joshua, Fury drops his hands, gives you his chin, gets clipped, and then makes you miss the 7 punches and stands you on your head. And Joshua gets frustrated, can look a little bit slow at times, and a little bit runs out of ideas, and then he catches you with a left hook and he pushes you to sleep. So, as the heavyweight division goes, that's what we want. We like to see vulnerability, and we like to see knockout power, and we also like to see a little bit of brilliance and fleet-footedness that Fury gives us. So I think it helps, and it helps boxing in general, because when the heavyweight division is flourishing and it's exciting, it trickles down to all of the weights. It brings interest into the sport, and it helps all like little guys like myself. Even though I'm not boxing anymore, it helps. It helps us. It helps bring interest in, and it gives us exposure, and more importantly, it gives us a living.
Yeah, and there's great tension in these fights as well, because if you make a mistake, you could end up on your backside. So Fury and Wilder, it hasn't officially been announced, but we think it's going to happen in December. Do you think that fight could be too early for Fury?
Well, I think everyone's still. I think everyone. I'm not sure if it's officially. I think they can't officially announce a fight that doesn't have a venue. But Frank Warren, Shelley Finkel, Wilder, Fury, and BT Sport are going to show the fight, and Showtime, I think, have all used social media to announce the fight for the 1st of December. I think it's looking like LA, apparently, but I think obviously, whoever's going to pay the most money for the site fees, I think that's where they'll go. It's an intriguing fight. You tend to think, to be honest, you've got to be, just take what you see, and it looks like a fight too early for Fury. For me, to be honest, as much as I want him to win, of course, more so for my job if anything else, but also being British, but of course I want him to win, but I think it might be a fight too early. Now he's a guy that he could, he makes so many mistakes to Deontay Wilder that literally Fury could play with him. But Fury uses that real fast footwork, he uses that reach and that height to lean back, and he rides the punch tremendously well. But Wilder's maybe has the longest wingspan I've ever seen in a fighter. So, where the judgment of distance has to be perfect for Fury, where he leans out the distance and takes a sting out of the punch, Wilder's still got another 6 inches of punch to come. And that will be the worry, because all the power's on the end of the shots with Deontay Wilder. And I just don't think the fights that Fury's had might not be enough preparation for a fight of this magnitude, and that might be the problem. Or I didn't give him a chance against going over to Germany against Klitschko, and it wasn't an exciting fight to watch, but he won in my cards quite comfortably, I thought. So he can show you flashes of brilliance, and he could do the job. I think he has the style. If he was active, I would fancy him against Wilder. The same as Joshua. I think I fancy Joshua against Wilder. I really do. I think Wilder's just technically so poor that I think they both could beat him, because I think Joshua is straight down the pipe. Throws his punches. He's very one-dimensional in many ways, but that's effective when you're heavyweight. Straight jab, straight right hand. No textbook left hook, and that'll beat the Wilder, because he throws his punches outside of the body, big wild swings. And obviously, Fury's just a bit of a maverick, and he'll spin around and he'll tap you on the back of the head, and he'll mess with your mind and force you to make more mistakes. But saying that, right now, this fight happens December the 1st, which you hope it's going to, then you have to favour Wilder, who's been active and been on form.
And would you make the winner of that fight the number one in the division?
I don't know. It's difficult. I guess you'd have to, but then it'll be all those questions about, again, like I'm saying, like Fury's not ready, being inactive. I know he's a lineal champion, but how many times can you keep saying that before he gets boring, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So right now, he's not a champion. He was a champion, never got beat, but he's still not a champion anymore. The champions are Wilder and Joshua. I'd still make Joshua the number one, to be honest.
Yeah. And
I think you have to. Even if he beat the Fury, an active Fury, after the Klitschko fight and Wilder was winning, then obviously Wilder goes top of the tree automatically. But I still think, for me, Joshua will still be number one. But for then, most importantly, whoever wins on the 1st of December fights Joshua next. I think everyone has to pull together to make that fight to happen. For the sake of boxing, for its integrity, and for the fans, and for everyone else who has a remote interest in sport, that would be the fight everyone want to see.
And in the British boxing heavyweight scene, it's obviously booming with Daniel Dubois, Hughie Fury, Joe Joyce. Who would you say out of those is most or best equipped to crash the heavyweight scene in the next 12 or 18 months?
Well, the closest is Hughie Fury, because he boxes Chuba Pulev. I think that's an eliminator for the IBF title.
Yeah.
So, which is a worry, because you can see that being fragmented again now, and that being a very good title before we can get the unification, which is going to be a pity. But yeah, so he's up next, and he's obviously got to go to Bulgaria and fight the Pulev, who's very good. But again, I think he's a guy who has so much latent ability, natural ability that really hasn't come through yet. He's a guy who could box rings around you. So I think he will probably be the next in line. I think Dillian White is obviously being pushed forward, and he gave Joshua a hard fight. So that fight will be made next year if they can't do the unification match against Joshua. And there's no argument with that. But I think Joshua's a better fighter than he was back then, that's for sure. And Dubois, too early to say. He looks fantastic, but it's still early days for him. Joe Joyce, he's boxing now on Sunday night in the US, making his US debut, and that'll be interesting to see where he goes. Because of his age, they're going to have to fast track him now as well, and I think that'll be fine, because he's had that WSB experience, which is a 5-round amateur contest in professional sort of setting, so he'll be fast tracked. Now I think by the time he gets to 10 fights, he'll be asking for a world title fight, and he's so strong, but he's not the hardest target to look for, so you tend to think that he might fall short against maybe a Wilder. But it's exciting times, because you can pick all these guys. They're all, like you said yourself, they're all very vulnerable. They all can punch, or they can box really well. They're all very vulnerable. They all give you loads of chances to finish a fight. So it makes for exciting fights, and it draws interest into the sport. And I keep saying this, I'm trying to brainwash people into falling in love with boxing. But when it's exciting at its best, I find it hard. I'm from Wales, so I grew up, being in love with rugby, of course, but I find it hard to say there's a better sport than boxing when it's at its best and it's most exciting. And I think the heavyweight division will help that right now. Yeah,
for sure. And one of the big fights of 2018, or one of the ones I'm certainly looking forward to, is George Groves against Callum Smith. Unfortunately, it's taken place in Saudi Arabia for some reason, but those are the breaks anyway. But I was definitely among those, Barry, who, after the Badou Jack fight, I thought George Groves had probably seen his best days, but he obviously came roaring back under Shane McGuigan. How do you think that fight's going to play out now on Friday night?
First of all, I think you were right. I think he has seen better days. I think the Badou Jack fight was... even though it sounds mad because he's won a world title since. But I've seen, and I think he's a tremendous fighter, George Groves, but I've seen a slight decline in George. I think he's offensively brilliant. I think he has a vulnerability when he gets hit. The thing is now he has the experience now to know what he does. To know what to do when he gets hit. Whereas before he didn't. But every time he gets hit, he looks a little bit vulnerable to me, George. And the panic a little bit, but he's got that experience to hold or to get on his bike a little bit more. But I don't think he's the same fighter he was pre-Badou Jack. So I think there's a chance here for Callum Smith. But on the same, also Callum Smith hasn't boxed anyone remotely near world level. I mean, obviously he beat Rocky Fielding, who's now a world champion, but Rocky wasn't world level right then. He was just he caught him a little bit early. So of course that was going on 3 years ago. So I think you have to go with what you know, and we know that George Groves can compete at the highest level. But Callum is a tremendous athlete. I think his preparation will be spot on. He's had quite an easy run in this World Boxing Super Series. To be honest, hasn't really boxed anyone world class yet. No. Where I think George has had a better sort of run up to this fight. But the injury might play a part, that shoulder might play a part as well. So there's a lot of interesting factors there, but I think going away from home that will help George Groves. He's used to have to go away or camps in another country. Obviously, the heat won't do anyone any good because they're both pale skinned. But I think you have to go with George Groves. But tentatively, I think if Callum Smith can use the jab a little bit more, use that 6'4" reach and height, and maybe catch George coming in with the uppercuts, and more importantly, when he hurts George, step on him quick. Then he's caused a bit of an upset. But I think you have to go with what you know, and I think George Groves, maybe the experience might just tell down the stretch. I think it'll go late, but I think might just tell down the stretch.
And Callum Smith is obviously such a big super middleweight. He's probably not long for that division now, but at 28 he's very much in his prime. Have you been a bit frustrated that it's taken him so long to get his shot? Because it seems like he's been ready for at least 18 months at this stage.
Well, I think he has been, and I think it's been a calculated decision by whoever's looking after him, whether it be Joe Gallagher or Eddie Hearn. I think they wanted to get him right, and also the division at the time. You got to wait for gaps. Certain fighters you don't want to fight when you're up there, and you want to wait for a little bit of a lull in the division before you can get that little gap and win a title. I think that's what they were looking for, and I think that's happened now. I think the division is not the best it's been right now, so I think it's time for him to strike now. And you're right, I think you don't stay in the super middleweight division for very long. I think he does move up to light heavyweight. The problem you have there is that light heavyweight division is a place you don't want to be, because every fighter there is not the nicest to get into with. That's for sure. You wouldn't fancy getting into any one of those champions right now. Obviously, just the champion in Alvarez who just beat Sergei Kovalev with a massive upset. So you just tend to think that if you can stay at super middleweight, if you can win this fight, obviously on Friday night, and stay at super middleweight as long as he can, he might have a bit of a successful reign. And more importantly, get that financial gain that he needs. Then when he does move up, the risk is worth taking because you've earned your money, and it's all about just your ambition and this new word everyone uses nowadays, your legacy. Yeah,
and that's one of the big fights on this pack schedule now till the end of the year, and one fight on BT at the very end of the year is Frampton against Warrington, which the press is well and truly underway for that. Two of the biggest draws in British and Irish boxing at the moment. Like 12 months ago I probably would have heavily favoured Frampton in that fight, but Warrington showed some new nuances in that fight against Selby, and it's more of a 50-50 than it might have been.
Yeah, I think so. First of all, the worst travesty of it all is you've got two guys who can sell stadiums.
Yeah.
And they both got to go to another city. They had to go, but it's a shame because obviously, Frampton, he started Belfast and South, and he went and Josh, he showed, almost filling up Ellen Road there. He's starting league, and they've got to go to Manchester in neutral ground. That's the pity of that. But yeah, you still make Frampton a favourite. You have to, because again, you just look at records and form, and Frampton, he doesn't look any worse than he did. Against Kiko Martinez, maybe he might be slightly better now. I didn't think he would say that after the two Santa Cruz fights, but he looks maybe better than he's ever been. Warrington showed, we know he's tough, and he's a neat boxer, not the biggest puncher, but I think he punches with a bit of weight and authority, but not being a knockout artist, like nowhere near Frampton's power, of course. But he showed an intelligence against Selby that I didn't think he had. Because I thought Andrew Selby was going to stand him on his head. I really did. I was vocal about that, not because of his wealth, just on what I've seen from both of them. And I thought he was going to really play with Warrington. And Warrington didn't engage like he thought. He didn't try and close the gap too really quick and walk on the punches. He was feinting, he was in and out with his punches, he was landing with 3 shots and not getting overexcited, and he was coming back out and coming out in different angles, not just coming back in straight lines. And Selby, I know he's had trouble with weight or whatever, but on the night, he ended up going back in straight lines because he was confused with what Warrington was doing, and I thought it was the performance of a lifetime that he needed to win a world title. Warrington, he needs that again against Frampton, a different sort of fight, of course, but he needs that again. But he's gonna try and have a push. He's not going to outbox Frampton. Is he going to do the pushing back? Again, it's hard because I think Frampton's timing is very good. Again, he leaves little gaps sometimes. He drops the left hand there to Carl Frampton, but Warrington has shown that he can just grit his teeth and dig through a fight, and he might be one of those guys who just can perform every time and beat fighters on paper who should beat him. There are some fighters like that in history who shouldn't have beat people, and somehow he just kept beating guys who were better than him, and he might be one of those. But I still favour Frampton. I think that the weight in the shot and the way, the calculation of his work, the footwork as well, that he bouncing around too much, he spins on the front foot really well, gets good angles of his attacks, and all that experience he's had now as well. He's almost a veteran, isn't he? And even though he's still a relatively young man, I still think that he goes in there as a not a massive favourite, but a big enough favourite to not earn any money unless you're going to put massive money on Frampton. I think you should go with a big favourite for me.
Barry, just before we go, obviously with the sad news last week of Enzo Calzaghe's passing, just what a career that himself and Joe had together. Joe was super middleweight world champion for a decade, obviously went up to light heavyweight, unbeaten, 46 fights. So how will Enzo be remembered as a trainer?
Well, he'll be remembered as the guy who literally produced and engineered the success of one of the greatest British boxers who's ever lived. And that's what sort of legacy is that? It's phenomenal. But on the back of that, Joe was a tremendous talent. Calzaghe would have won a world title if my nan would have trained him. But Enzo proved that he could produce other champions. Enzo McAnally, Nathan Cleverly went on to win a world title after he left it, but he was British champion with Enzo, I think, just before that. And obviously Gavin Rees, he took a guy who was 5'3" and made him a light welterweight champion of the world. Who can do that? And I think his system was laughed at and was unusual and was massively unorthodox, but he believed in the system. And he had faith in it, and persevered with it, and it produced champions, all throughout the board. So I think he'll be remembered as one of the greatest trainers that maybe the greatest trainer Wales has ever had, and one of the greatest trainers Britain has ever had. But more than that, he was there. He watched his son, and he helped his son become a world champion, achieve his ambition and his potential. And that, to me, is more than all the awards that he's had and the world champions he's had. Everyone wants the best for their kids, and he helped, and he's seen his kids reach his potential. And he died with a man. His life was fulfilled. He died with a full life. He lived a full life through, not just through his son, but through himself. Enzo was a lovely guy. Always had time for me, and he'd be sadly missed. And I love Joe Calzaghe with a passion, and I feel for him. I really do, because he was close to his dad more than most fathers and sons are. It wasn't just a business relationship that you see so many times in boxing. It was a real love, and he's struggling right now, Joe. And I wish him well in the future. And obviously, Enzo, with all our love, I hope he rests in peace, and he'll never be forgotten.
Yeah, and we echo those sentiments. We send our best wishes to Joe and the Calzaghe family. Barry Jones, thanks very much for joining us. You've been great with your time.
No, thank you. And if you have me on again, I'll try to talk so much next time.
Brilliant, Barry. Thanks a million. Chat soon.
Okay, bye.
That's the great Barry Jones, BT's colour commentator. His next pay-per-view outing will be Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder. And it's safe to say Tyson Fury reckons that is the true meeting of the best heavyweights in the division.
I think it's safe to say now that not Team Joshua or Matchroom will ever fight the Gypsy King. Never. They mentioned if it's not Wilder, it'll be White. There's no mention of Tyson Fury, the lineal heavyweight champion of the world. It's all right fighting men 39-year-olds, half your size. Tonight is pure evidence that I'm fighting the best heavyweight out there in Deontay Wilder. Joshua's not even close. He's slow, methodical, ponderous at times. Powerful, yes, but they all are. Very, very clear to say, avoid me at all costs. If I was you, Joshua, I'd avoid me, because I will jab your face off. You bum. You're a bum dosser. Hashtag bum city. Can't box. Jab your nut in. Easy night's work. I've never seen a bigger bum in my life.
Never seen a bigger bum in his life, Phil. What do you think of that? Hashtag bum dos or hashtag bum city?
Don't know, Jennifer Lopez. It sounded like after the fight anyway on Saturday night, Eddie Hearn, Joshua, they didn't mention Tyson Fury. So what do you
See,
read
the problem
into that?
is, right, if Fury wins that fight,
Yeah.
Wilder has a rematch clause.
Yeah.
So there's no chance of it's not going to be Fury in April anyway. So I can kind of see the point. And Fury, obviously, he's a little less conversation, a little more action from Fury would be nice. Like, let's see if he actually gets in the ring December 1st, and we'll take it from there. But yeah, like, I can see why it's either going to be Wilder. If not, it's going to be White. And
Also, as well, Eddie Hearn wasn't shy in basically saying how he's not the easiest on the eye to watch fight-wise, Tyson Fury.
I think the quote was, I don't want to be disrespectful, but ... he's the most unentertaining fighter I've ever seen, or something like that. So yeah, Fury does most of his entertaining out of the ring, which isn't exactly the best marketing tool, although Floyd Mayweather has kind of made a career out of that as well, so
yeah,
be interesting. So Fury Wilder, one of the fights on this packed ledger we have coming up. Another one that was confirmed over the weekend is Usyk versus Bellew, which will take place in November. As I think we spoke about it before, like, Usyk is an unbackable favourite in this fight, and yet I don't think we're ever going to write Tony Bellew off again, are we?
No. Like, you saw what Usyk did against Gassiev, went over to Russia, schooled him. He's the undisputed cruiserweight champion of the world, and all logic points to him winning. And the reason they've come over and accepted this fight and got on board with Matchroom is so they can fight Joshua. They want to fight Joshua at heavyweight a few years down the line, and there's no doubt he's a better boxer than Bellew. But as Bellew said in the press conference this week, that he hasn't faced a fighter that could knock him out in the way Bellew could. Yeah,
it's the first ever 4-belt undisputed title fight ever to take place in Britain. So we'll get our teeth into that one closer to the fight. Simon, have you any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think Bellew deserves a lot of kudos for taking this fight. He could have easily walked away into the sunset after stopping Hay twice. Pockets were lined, good to go. And he's taken on this lad now who is one of the most dangerous fighters, pound for pound, in boxing. He is superbly agile. He's very technically smart at how he boxes. Gassiev didn't land a jab in the last 4 rounds in Moscow in that unification fight.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not an easy fight. This is not a gimme fight. He's not a favourite. Usyk is a favourite by a long stretch in this one.
Yeah.
And Bellew said, yeah, let's do it. That's,
Will the weight be an issue?
It's an interesting one. Like, Bellew fought so long at light heavyweight, which is remarkable to think that he even made that weight. But he looks healthy at cruiser, and possibly he was probably overweight at heavy. So cruiser's probably his best limit. Whether he can get back down there, easily remains to be seen. That fight Simon referenced there with Gassiev was the final of the World Boxing Super Series cruiserweight division. As we mentioned with Barry, the super middleweight encounter takes place in the boxing hotbed of Jeddah on Friday night at 9 p.m. UK Irish time. Quick predictions on that one, lads?
I think what Barry said was spot on, but I wonder about Groves' shoulder. I was just watching some of the footage that self and Shane McGuigan, and they've obviously had to alter their training regime, do a lot of road work and sprint work, and gradually just reintroduce the pad work. But they say that the jab is working fine. Obviously, he's going to need that. But I just wonder, can it hold up to it? And the problem you see with Groves is if he gets caught with a big shot from Smith, we've seen what's happened in the past, and that's got to be the worry. I wonder the fact, though, that probably there's more pressure on Smith. He's never lost. This is his chance. I think you referenced the Jack fight. I think since then Groves won 7 in a row, but it's almost like he's lost a few now and he's in bonus territory.
Yeah, he is. That's a good way of putting it, actually. But in terms of pressures, there's actually a vacuum of pressure because there'd be no fight fans at this select few media, so it's almost as if this fight's taking place. It could be taking place in space for all the British fight fans.
It's almost like you're at a bit like a fancy dinner.
Yeah, it is.
And then up there, there's a fight on as you're eating your steak dinner.
Yeah, so it's just going to be a pure boxing match. There's not going to be too many outside factors to account for, so it'll be interesting. I think Callum Smith, if this had been a year ago, I definitely would have backed him. It's whether, like, he's such a big super middle. Like, the only thing, if he's still making the weight comfortably, I'd back him in this fight. But Groves has proven me wrong before, and he could do it again, Simon.
I think this is going to be a slugfest. I'd backed Groves a couple of months, when it was shaping up that this is going to happen. But looking at it now, Smith kind of has that Mickey Ward head, body, head hooks going the whole time.
Yeah.
I don't think Groves has ever taken that much body punishment.
No.
If he clips him a couple of times to the head and then goes to the body, I'm going with Smith by knockout to the body.
Yeah, it should be a great fight now, and Smith, part of that famous Fighting Smith clan, and probably the pick of the bunch.
Groves has already beaten one Smith.
He has. And he's also beaten Chris Eubank Jr., who fights our own JJ McDonough on the undercard. Best of luck to JJ in that one. Chris Eubank Jr. has flattered to deceive so far. Would you give JJ much chance there?
No, I think Eubank Jr. will win the fight, but I don't really know where he's going.
Yeah, I don't think he knows where he's going either.
No.
Which is kind of the problem. Simon, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, just to echo what you're saying there. I don't. What's the plan for Eubank Jr.?
Yeah.
I mean, they talked a very good game. They had him, and then he got his wings clipped, and now he's just there as kind of, if one of the guys falls out in the main event, he can step in.
Yeah,
you know, he's a substitute basically.
I was one of the ones who drank the Kool-Aid on Chris Eubank Jr. I was at the fight against Groves, and Boxing Monthly did a poll, and nearly all of them picked Eubank to win that fight, and it just shows he's been dubbed a prospect, but he's 29.
It's the name though.
It is,
and the name itself brings pressure as well. Like, he's never going to be as good as his father was, but he's certainly not as good as people think he is.
Right, lads, we're gonna leave it there for this week. Just a reminder that the MMA show makes its illustrious debut this week with Niall McGrath in the hot seat. He'll be joined by Simon, who'll be back in. He's our dual star on the Combat Show. And Pizza Carroll will be alongside him as well. You can get that on podcast at Off the Ball Highlights or on the YouTube channel at Off the Ball. That's it for this week, lads. See you later.